Now we get into the reason we're here today. Welcome to Steve's Backyard Bonsai. Today I brought in my larch forest because it looks more like just a mound of fluff. So we've got to work on that. It's supposed to look like a miniature forest, but it doesn't look like that at all. So it's a young planting. This is its second year, and I want these trees to look like they're supposed to be here. So let's see what I can do about it. Where to start? If I'm going to start with the most outrageous looking tree, with outrageous not being necessarily a good thing, I'd say it's this one. You may not be able to see it from the view that we're at now, but there's a cascading bit of new growth here that looks really cool to be happening near the apex of a tree. So this one's getting an apex. It's spending an awful lot of energy on some very dumb looking branches, if you ask me. So why don't I take care of that first? Okay. There's a pruning stub. Actually, it's not a pruning stub. It is, but it's got a little bit of growth close to the tip. I'm taking that off. So that did something. This is also quite a wasteful branch, but I like what that branch is doing behind it. So that comes off. If I can shape up this tree, well, let's get rid of some of the longer needles from right early on in the season. They come out quite easily. Meaning pulling in the direction that it's growing. This is going to be a long process. All right, I'm trying to shape the apex of this tree, and remember that it's next to another tree, but it's featured in this planting because of where it is on the outside. Now there's other things besides where the branch is located that come into play. There's a tree on the inside here that never seems to get much light. So what do? I've got to let that tree grow and be taller than everything else. But I don't want to take this tree down too low because it is developing an apex right here. It's growing vertical. Here's another branch that doesn't need to be there. Pretty it up a little by taking some of these old longer needles off. Reach in with a tool if your fingers aren't going to make it. Stand back and reevaluate. There's a branch coming out the bottom. Get rid of that. You're kind of working blind because you know the tree is going to make some of its own selections and just die off. Okay. So, in forming an apex, I have an opportunity that I think I want to take advantage of. There is some vertical growth right here and at the apex of this tree. I like them both, and this is blocking that tree in the center of the planting. So off it comes, which means I've got to shorten this, and I really like that. But I'm building a theatrical set. That was one of my favorite courses in college. And in this case, it's even harder because there's not just one point of view. There are many. I want to be able to walk around this. Okay, so now I want to look at the tree next to it at its apex. And I'll work my way down the trees, but I want to find apexes and get them growing if possible. And this is too long still. There we go. And you can only work with what the tree is giving you. I have no branches right here, so I'm letting this branch curve around because that's what it wants to do. But there's a limit to my permissiveness. For instance, do I want this doubling back and blocking the trunk from this view? I think I do a little. I can take this end off. It still looks good from that side. Now I'm questioning this. Remember, this is a theatrical thing. As you come around this side, I'm going to have to fill that gap with this tree. So I want to start working on the apexes. Now this side impacts this tree more. Let's work on this. Okay, what's going on here? Can't even figure it out. All right, there's a branch coming out. I got to get rid of these wispy things. The old needles. I'm just going to have to let needles drop on the planting. Let's see if I can do it better with my fingers. Actually, let me attack it like I did the other one. Just take care of the outrageous stuff, the stuff that the tree is wasting energy on. But you got to be careful. I think the tree is wasting energy right here. Now, what did I make the apex look like? Actually, this is shaping up to be a nice apex right here. So, what would be competing with it? Here's another branch that the tree is wasting energy on. There's some interior forest growth here that I have to deal with. I want to see what it does to some other views. All right. I think this lower branch has a part of it that goes down and a part of it that goes up. I'm going to take the part of it that goes up off and See what it does to the clutter. It definitely helped. There isn't really much on that tree, but what there is I want to keep in check. I think the best thing to do is to go into a fast motion, come back and look at what I've done. You've seen so far how I'm going about this, but I think seeing the end product would be a much better visual for you. All right, so far I've made all that fuss for just pruning up 2 trees. I've got a long way to go. This tree will also let me look at the tree in the center that I'm so worried about. Can I get an apex? There is one starting closer in to the trunk. That might be a good start. This tree did not give me a good apical option when I first pruned it. Big branch going off to the side. Does it do anything prior to it interrupting with that tree? It does. It has a little side branch. So I can take the end off of it. Got some debris in there. Here's a interesting elbow growing up. Is it doing anything for the tree? I'll try and zoom up on that. It comes out and has a long, very vigorous shoot. And doesn't do anything below that shoot. But everything coming up out of there kind of clogs everything else up. So, in a case like that, thinking theatrically now, do I take that off? I think I have to. As much as that hurt, it was the right move. There is some growth behind it. It's not getting any sun, and I think we've just rectified that somewhat. I can shorten this guy above it. And when I clean out those fine needles, it makes a big difference. So here's an opportunity for a cascading lower branch. Right here. I can let that grow on and have the weight of it pull this down. Maybe I can redirect it toward the back tree rather than outside of the planting. So I'm going to take the top one off. And I can shorten this. There are 2 branches starting on either side that's not getting any vigor because of this. So off with its head, something like this that looked so vigorous and now looks so weak. I'm hoping that was the right move. Okay, this branch. It's got an odd piece that swoops in and just blocks everything. I'll take that off. I didn't get the whole thing. The only place I can take this is down to this, and I think I have to. There's no better time to do this, and I think all this tree needs now is pulling out the needles so you can really see what's left. I thought I'd give you a bit of an overhead view. I'm starting to tackle these trees in the center. The old longer needles, they pull out very easily. So you've seen me use a number of different methods. You've seen me use a tweezer. You've seen me go in and cut the lower branches or the lower needles with a scissors. I mean, ideally, I'd like to adopt Nigel's method of doing the blue scissors first. Of course, I'd get a different color, so I wouldn't be plagiarizing. But I mean, that would be great, ideally. Let's thin this out. I don't need it to be that long. There's an errant branch right there, interfering with the tree next to it. Every needle I get out of the way will allow sunlight in for the remaining needles. And what I'm hoping to get is a nice flush of beautiful new green growth in a good direction. Some of this new growth is looking a little droopy because it was in the shade, I think. So after this operation is complete, we should have that droopy growth taken off. I've talked about this before. The floor of the forest is littered with needles. And I've used this phrase before: what could be better than on a forest floor than needles from the trees that are in the forest? However, I think the debris would end up being more of a pain than anything else. So I'll probably end up picking up the needles. Might not do it at the end of the year though. Might let the needles stay on the planting through the winter. Provide a little blanket for those extra cold days. Here's an example of a droopy apex. I'll put the fertilizer tea bags back on the planting that were there. They're only a couple of weeks old. I'm changing them out on June 1st. You can see how long this takes and how tedious it is. You really shouldn't attempt a forest unless you're willing to be this maintenance conscious with it. I'm going to conserve battery and turn off the iPad for a little while I finish this up, and we'll come back to look at the end. All right, here is the roadway all pruned up. The larch forest. Probably should have another tree right here. I have some babies, some cuttings rooting, so I will get another tree in here at some point. But that's it for today. I'm hoping that this fills in and these trees get a little bit taller. I do like the height of my tallest tree in the back, and I'm hoping that these all regain some vigor and recover nicely from the pruning. I think I did a serious job on these trees. But thanks for keeping me company in my backyard.